Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Cucina Aurora Kitchen Witchery podcast. I am absolutely freaking ecstatic today. I know I say that every episode, but like every episode, I am just as excited as I was for the one before. But this one is really excited because today I'm grateful to say my good friend, amazing witch, incredible musician, storyteller, pixie human, sort of human. She's more pixie mermaid witch than human. This is today we are hanging out with SJ Tucker. Let me tell you a little bit about my good friend SJ. She is the voice of lore at the campfire, the sharp laughter of modern myth, and she's proud to contribute to the soundtrack of our collective imagination. So true, because everything she does is the soundtrack to my life. A performing songwriter, well loved at fannish and witchy events at home and abroad since 2002. She wields an award-winning body, that's for sure, an award-winning body of original music known for changing lives and healing wounded hearts. Whether you have found her through solid crowd favorite like Firebird's Child or Cheshire Kitten, or you're just encountering her fierce healing spirit for the first time, SJ, or Sooj, as we fans and friends lovingly call her, she has a song for you. In performance with deft guitar, skillful hand drums, and versatile vocals, she runs a shapeshifter's gamut from silly to sacred and back again, embodying the truth in our songs and stories, the spirit of community and wit. SJ Tucker, my dear friend Sooj, welcome to the podcast. Before we started recording, we were like, oh my God, we haven't seen each other's faces in 100 years. I am just like, I can't stop smiling looking at you. And also, can we just say you're fucking gorgeous and your smile is infectious. Like,
thank you.
It's you know, it's glitter. You know how like when you have glitter,
there is. I put on glitter for you.
It gets on and you can't wash it off. Like you find it weeks later in your underwear. That's how I feel about your smile.
Oh, I could tell you some stories. I could really embarrass my husband right now if you want me to. And it won't get not safe for work unless you say the word. I give you my word.
This is my podcast. Nothing's off limits
here. That's right. I listened to this podcast. I know just how raunchy we can get.
I mean, I remember meeting you.
You saved my life with a cookie.
With a cookie.
You saved my life with a cookie at FairyCon. Or I'm sorry, it was
FairyCon.
It was Mythic Worlds at the time, because it was Mythic Fair. Worlds Mythic Fair. It was the one that they had in spring 2011.
Where nobody came.
Weird time.
Yes.
Same hotel. Yeah. Different time of year.
Yeah.
I got to meet you. I had way too much of a 5-hour energy or something, which I don't do anymore.
Yeah.
Just because I was exhausted, I was burned out, and I knew it, and I was like, but I still want to do a good job.
And you were amazing.
I'm gonna like alchemize this substance, this fuel, to give me the pixie dust that I need to do a good job at the show that I'm gonna go do on the vendors hall stage downstairs. And you were right across from it, and I had no idea what a beautiful soul I was about to start sharing a story with. And I was, 5-hour energy was doing terrible things to me. And I don't even remember most of that set because I was so caffeined up.
Yeah. Yeah. It was the first time
I played everything way too fast.
You were amazing.
Everything way too fast. And I don't remember it. What I remember is coming over and saying hello to you. And we officially met, and we exchanged the pleasantries that we exchanged of two fairy ladies who had never met before, but really kind of wanted to connect. Yeah. And then you gave me a cookie, and I sat down on the floor immediately.
Yes.
In your booth.
I handed you that cookie.
Ate the cookie, and no one messed with me until I was done.
Yes.
And then I was much more okay after
it
that
was
cookie.
Hilarious. It was hilarious because I had been listening to your music for a while. A friend of a friend had given me like a CD that was like a mix of her favorite things.
Which is how you know that you're really friends with somebody, by the way.
Right. She made me a mixtape. I mean, a mixed CD, but still, this is so long ago.
Mixtapes will never die. We can still call them mixtapes.
Right.
I said
This is so long ago that like we didn't have like music on our phones. That's how long it was, like in the age of flip phones. Like
It was 10 years ago.
it was maybe more.
10 years
It,
ago.
it had to have been more because I was
When
still
I'm
living.
sorry, when I met you was 10 years ago. I was making an assumption there.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I honestly think it was longer than that because I was still living in New York at the time, I think. So, and I've been living in New Hampshire for a while. I want to say it could have been 12 years ago. It was a really long time ago. I was still skinny. So it was a long time ago. And I
Me
have
too,
been,
girl. Me too.
and I have been, I knew who you were, right? I knew of SJ
That still
Tucker,
blows my mind.
right?
It still
Like
blows
I
my
knew
mind
of you.
that
And then
anyone
all
knew
of a sudden you were,
who I was.
oh my God. Yeah. And I was like, oh, I think that's SJ Tucker. Oh my God. And you're playing this song on the stage. I was like mesmerized by you,
And
mesmerized.
let me interject and say that Betsy Tinney was with me that
Oh, Betsy
weekend
with her
playing
cello.
cello,
Oh,
which is always an amazing concert. If Betsy and I get to be together, if I am
it was,
graced with her presence, it is
yes.
always transformative and always
Yeah.
more beautiful than it would have been without her.
There's just something about, I mean, there's definitely something about a cello in general, right? I mean, the sound of a cello is just so rich, but
But
to
then you get
put,
a cello plus Betsy.
yeah. And then you get a cello plus Betsy
Uh,
plus SJ, and there's twinkling, there's starlight, there's velvet, there's chocolate, there's wine, like the senses are just, and there you are in the middle of this, hotel with fluorescent lights and all the vendors, and there's loud commotion and people are shopping, and still like you're transfixed on this amazing audio artwork that's happening in front of you. And you came walking off the stage, and we exchanged pleasantries, like you said, and I was like, have a cookie. And you literally took a bite and went, and sat there, and I just sat down next to you, and like that was the end of that. Like we
yeah.
were just we were just
That
in
was
it
the start
forever.
of the sisterhood, and I am so glad that we had that moment,
Eternally
and that
grateful.
moment has led to all of the other moments, even though the moments have been like at a great distance compared to this moment right now.
I mean, yeah, and the truth is I'm so grateful because over the years we have had the chance to have moments where where you've stayed at our place and we've able to have dinner, and
You have kept
and
me safe so many times. You have kept me safe, and one of these days I'm going to get to repay that
I keep
because I
telling you
have a
I'm gonna.
real address now. I am much less of a touring vagabond
Well,
than I have been in previous times in my life.
I had no idea that you lived in Arkansas. I was like,
Well, pro tip, having a place to land when the pandemic hits turned out to be a really good idea.
yeah.
I'm sorry, I said the word. I should have said
No, 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 no,
panini.
no, no,
I don't
no,
want social media to like refuse to show this to people
no, no.
because
YouTube
that's a
will show
thing.
anything. Uh, no, so how? I mean, I guess that's a good place to really. Besides the fact that we're just over here having a total love fest on each other, um, and we can talk
Love
about
fest, love
love fest.
fest,
We can
love
talk about your
fest.
music and your projects and what you've been doing. But like before the pandemic, you're ostensibly a touring musician.
Oh yes,
I mean that was your life.
yep,
You
completely.
know, and how was that life compared to life now?
Well, there are so many things that are strange,
Yeah.
but for me, for me personally, there is a little bit of a gift in just exactly how the timing shook out
Mm, yeah,
because I still consider myself a new mom.
absolutely.
I was pregnant in 2018. My little boy is about to turn 3 years old as we sit here. His birthday is in October. He's Mama's little Scorpio.
Scorpio power.
Mama's little Scorpio. I knew you'd be proud of that. And because of the timing of the pandemic, I was here with him. I was here with him and with my husband, who is his dad, and with my husband's parents on the property that they have maintained since
Yeah.
he was born, where he has always lived, where they ran a summer camp for children
Oh my
from about
goodness.
1968 to 1993.
Wow.
And so this land was like, girl, I got you.
Yeah.
When it turned out that I was not going to get to really act on my plans of, okay, I've had the baby. Everybody else is sufficient with caring for him. I can probably go back out on the road, at least to some extent. Now I'm ready to do this. And then goes the world. So I have a lot of feelings about how society will tell people who become parents, okay, it's time for you to bounce back now.
Yeah.
Overlaid with my personal experience of, okay, I'm ready to get back out into doing what I do and singing to people and traveling a lot, which I have since I was 22, literally almost exactly half my life ago. And then, okay, so January 2020, I do a 1-card draw because I am trying to get momentum back to get my next full-length record finished and out to people.
Right.
And I have been taking my sweet time. It has been, parts of this thing have been underway for 10 years. Mm-hmm. And the last official full-length release I had was in 2015. Believe me, that is on my mind.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, should I go ahead and try to rush this out the door, or should I take my time? And that is what I asked my cards, which in this case was the druid deck. Mm-hmm. And Dawn, I swear to you, I drew the Hermit card for the first time in my life. Oh, that motherfucker right there.
Yeah.
Said in no uncertain terms, no, ma'am, you stay
Bitch,
put and
please.
you take your time.
Yeah.
You stay put and you take your time.
Yeah.
And I had no idea just how firm of a no, you stay put and you take your time, because you're about to not have a choice.
Right.
That was going to be.
Like, you better be okay with this. Like, sit the fuck down, get your shit in order, because you ain't going nowhere. Get your
house in order, because you're not going to be looking at anything but the inside of your house for a while.
Yes. Yes.
I imagine. I am with me with reading tarot, and I do not read for other folks. I am not even proficient at reading for myself.
Me neither.
There are people on this planet who are masters and moonsters at this. I am not one of them, and they have all my respect. Any tarot reading I have had, whether it's been just a little spread for myself, or a 1-card draw for myself, or someone who is incredibly proficient reading for me, I have never gotten the clue upside my head about what it was about until the thing is actually happening.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't know how common that is. I don't know if that's a thing that other folks struggle with. I don't know if that's a thing that people who are proficient with the tarot struggle with. But like every time for me, that is how it is. And this was that writ large, because I have never drawn the Hermit card until this one instance.
Wow.
So that was a lot all at once. But then,
and you're like,
really started coming to grips with
what could that possibly mean? No. Yeah. No, and you try to like internalize it, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh shit.
It was hella affirmative, because it said to me, no, you get to take your time with putting this music out. You don't have to rush and get it out just so people will have it and make it something less than the project that you want it to become. So that's given me all this extra time to work on the music itself, like detail by detail, which is its own trap, because you can only get a blade so sharp. And I have to really give myself internal boundaries to make sure that I am not overproducing things or over perfecting things. Friends of mine gave me a little printed strip of sticker to put on the top of my laptop, my work laptop, where I do all of my mixing and recording, ages and ages ago. And it said perfection is the enemy of expression, I think.
Oh.
And so I have to go back to that a lot. I have to go back to that a lot.
Isn't that true? You know, it's very interesting to talk with you, because so far most of my guests that I've had on the show are authors. Yeah. And
fabulous authors,
amazing authors,
dear to my heart authors.
Yeah, incredible people. But the creative process of writing a book is very different than the creative process of writing music. And I am blessedly and gratefully married to an amazing musician. And so
we have good men folk, you and we really do.
We have fucking great men. Like he is Justin, Ryan, these are incredible men. But I get to witness the process of a musician regularly. And it's interesting, sidebar, like how often music has come up in my other interviews with authors, and how influential music and stylized musical things have, whether it's theater or a particular, goth music or whatever it is, has influenced people in their writing books on witchcraft. Like you wouldn't think. I was just talking to there's a interview coming up that I did with Christopher Penczak, and I was like, what influenced you? And he's like, 90s glam metal, and I was like, what? Yeah, you're the founder of the Temple of Witchcraft. He's like, oh yeah, so we get into that whole conversation.
And now I love him more.
The best, one of the best human beings on the planet. But it's interesting to me to hear you talk about the process of being a musician and that idea of like, yeah, you can perfect something too much, and when to stop and when to throw everything up on the wall musically, and then take away, because sometimes what you hear in your head as a musician, as a composer, is not accessible to those of us who aren't musicians. It gets too complicated and we're like, that doesn't sound right. And then you're like, yes, but the time signature, blah, blah. So I imagine,
yes, so
right?
True.
I imagine that is a challenge for you. And I also would like to learn more about, so I want you to address that, but then I also want to talk about your journey and your development as a musician and a witch. And would you be doing music if you weren't pagan? Would you be pagan if you weren't doing music? Where do those things collide? And how did they collide in the first place?
That is the yummiest question, and I shall strive to give it the yummiest answer. But going back to the musicianship bit that you wanted me to address, the other side of that, being home, taking my time, not rushing a full-length record out the door, while realizing that there is all this time, in spite of the fact that there's like this looming other shoe of the virus, which, I mean, despite being fully vaccinated, if I go to the grocery store, I could potentially catch a breakthrough case of any time. There have been messages of such clarity when I am sitting with one song at a time. Sometimes it's a song that I had planned to work on that week. Sometimes it's a song that has been sitting, waiting its turn for a couple of years that I wrote a while back. Such clear messages from universe, from source, from inside of Sooj. I cannot identify every single time quite where it's coming from, but the clarity of saying, you should, or not even the should, but go ahead, get this one ready, release it as a single as soon as possible, because this is going to be the one that people need the most right now, that specifically that your people, that your greater witchy community needs right now.
Yeah.
And
that's
so the
big
feedback
responsibility
is huge, but I ain't scared. Because I am blessed to have a community of fellow practitioners and listeners and fans and friends who will give me feedback on stuff. And not like in huge ways, like a lot of people who are creators on Patreon, I'm sure, are like me, in that sometimes it feels like people are giving you all their money and none of their feedback. And in some ways that's good, but in other ways you're like, guys, my people,
I'm here for you.
I want to know if you like it. I want you to hold me accountable and
I made you this thing.
Stuff, but I know you're tired, so you don't have to. So there's lots of balance and lots of extremes at the same time. But it has been hella rewarding to get to have this space, not only to work on one song at a time, but also to release singles throughout, over the course of several months. When I get the push that says, now is the time for this song. Now is the time for instance, Trickster Prayer. Now is the time for Chalk on the Sidewalk. Now is the time for Outlast, which is the little Bandcamp single that I released most recently. Because I had put it up on YouTube for Play Music on the Porch Day, which is, I think, the last Saturday in August every year now. That's a thing that has grown on social media.
Yeah.
And I didn't even know about it until last year.
Yeah.
But I put that song up, and I said, I hope that this makes your day a little easier, because we're all so in it right now. And it's no, it's not the
Yeah.
same for any two people, but just month after month after month of grief and trauma and not having enough time to process it
Yeah.
on
The
a
relentlessness.
global level. It
Yeah.
is
The
relentless.
relentlessness
And a lot of
of the
us,
trauma.
thankfully, a lot of us have never had to deal with this before. And my love and mad respect to the folks who have had this, have carried this kind of thing all their lives, because a lot of us have have trauma that we live with and that has shaped us.
Yeah.
And a lot of us have gotten off light. A lot of us are not playing at that difficulty level
Yeah.
on the video game.
Yeah. You're 100% right. You know, just to touch on that, recently, and I'll be, you know, very open and frank. I don't think that I'm, you know, hiding anything or sharing too much on this podcast, but I've been struggling with all that stuff that everyone else is struggling with. And in talking with my therapist, I suggest everyone have a therapist. In talking with my therapist, she said, you know, a lot of there's a term now for where we are societally and what we're dealing with, and they're calling it languishing. It's this space between being able to actually grieve a trauma, because you usually can't grieve that trauma until until it's past, but this trauma just keeps, you know, pulling, and it's one thing after another, and civil unrest and horrible laws being passed, and fear and the not knowing what's coming next. And so we've all kind of collectively like turned off a little bit, and we're not finding joy where we would find joy. And I've had this conversation a couple of times with other people, like, we're not finding that drive to do our magic. We're like, I lit a candle. That's all I can do. And I have to be okay with that. You know, like you said, playing a piece of music, even if it's just one piece of music that you've completed, and say, I'm giving this to myself. And I'm also giving this to the community in hopes that you have 2 minutes and 30 seconds of joy and peace. And if that's all you get today, then I'm grateful to be a part of that. I think it's very, very important that people like yourself are continuing to find those bright spots within themselves, even amongst all the garbage, and be able to share that with the rest of us, because that's all we can do, right? Collectively, it's those tiny little moments of goodness and kindness. Whether you're a witch, whether you're a pagan, whether you're a Christian, it doesn't really matter. Goodness and kindness that you can give to someone else unconditionally. Like, I'm just going to hold this door open for you because it's the right thing to do. I'm going to play this piece of music for you because maybe it makes me happy. Maybe it'll make you happy. You know, it's all we can really do right now.
We fight evil by sharing the things that give us joy.
Yes. Yes. And you, my love, give so much joy. You give so much joy. You know, there's specific things, your album Blessings, for me, I don't even have the words to describe the way it makes me feel. Connected isn't enough of a word. Grounded isn't enough of a word. Magical isn't enough of a word. It just makes me feel a wholeness into my spirituality that I can't get by myself. It's a tool for me. You know, circle song. It's a tool for me. And I think that, I'm sure you hear that. I'm sure people tell you that, but I think right now, when we are so isolated, we can't be with our people. We can't be in our communities. Even now, 18 months into this pandemic and shit's not getting better. We need that connective tissue, and music is just like food is life. Music is life. I mean, so many of us would be not here without it. And you are a facilitator of that art form. And
Thank you
it's
for saying that part out loud.
You're a facilitator of that art form. And and I'm going to say this out loud because I don't think people understand musicians. I don't think people understand artists. I don't.
Sorry.
I truly don't. I truly do not think people understand musicians and do not understand artists. You are a musician first. Before you're a woman, before you're a mother, before you're a wife, before you're a witch, before you're whatever, you're a musician. Like, you have brown hair. It is the fabric of your being. And people don't get that about artists. It's not something you do, just like being a witch. It's not something you do. It's something you are at your core. It's how you move through the world. And that's, to me, why it's so special. You know, you see people trying to kind of like replicate it in a false way, or squelch it, and you just can't. And now you are here combining this amazing part of your soul, the music, that it lives in you. I mean, and you just have to get it out. You don't make it, you're just getting it out. Like, you're like sweating, like it just just comes out of you. And I see it in Justin. Like, he's the same way. It just comes out of him. Like, he'll get to a point where, like, I can't contain this. I need to just play it. Or
yeah, everything that you have said is true. And
right?
there is no off switch. And when we
No.
try to force an off switch,
Bad shit happens.
horrible emotional and mental things can potentially occur.
Yes.
And it isn't because we can't control ourselves. I learned this from Elizabeth Gilbert's TED Talk, so I'm going to be paraphrasing, but I think this falls in line with how people didn't used to say. I think people used to say that you had a muse, and we don't phrase it the same way these days. Like, no. It wasn't. It's a relationship. But it's not always something that translates into speaky words.
Yeah.
And sometimes it can make us a little bit unreliable. Sometimes it can make us outwardly to seem a bit flaky, but we are tapped by something.
Yeah.
That doesn't play by human rules.
It's a different wiring. It's a different wiring of the brain and heart.
I'm not making excuses.
No.
I'm just saying that sometimes being a musician first makes a lot of other things very tricky. And those of us who want to move in the world with compassion, we know this. Yes. And we work on ourselves to make sure that we are not letting people down at the same time as serving that muse.
It is a hard balance.
There's you could go into the whole the great stereotypical generalization that you cannot be a great artist unless you have a substance abuse problem.
Bullshit.
Not true.
Bullshit.
That kind of thing.
Yeah.
Or from the other side of it, the reason that I cackled out loud a little while ago is because when you said people don't understand musicians, I like all of the old get a real job stuff like came floating in my head, and I was just like, oh
yes.
So
yes.
that was the joyful reaction.
Yeah.
In response to that.
So that, again, like, I want to get back to this, this music being such a part of you and how you move through the world, and it is who you are, right? And I'm going to guess music was who you were from the time of birth. You probably popped out with some sort of stringed instrument attached to you, like singing songs and running barefoot outside, banging pots and making noise. Like, that's how I imagine baby Sooj. And I'm guessing from your reaction, I'm not far off. But at the same time, I think we look at witchcraft and the pagan path. And I shouldn't say witchcraft. I should say the pagan path, because the craft of doing spells is not necessarily the path of every pagan, right?
Yes.
Right. So
well put.
Right. So that also is something that I feel is born, is who we are. So the melding, I want to get back to this idea of the melding between your path of your spiritual belief, of pagan beliefs, and the path of being a musician. How did they come together? And can you talk a little bit about that mushy, like a s'mores of goodness?
Well, I'll marry the sort of points of origin that I see from on the inside of me over here with how things are in the moment as far as music and witchcraft, song witchery, whatever we want to call it, blending in my life. and I talk about this a fair amount, but when I was a younger person, living in the small town in southeast Arkansas, which is where I was born and raised. Wow. And I'm living sort of in the northwest central part of the state right now, where the mountains just start to begin, where the oldest mountains start to begin, and it is gorgeous. And I kind of always wanted to spend more time here as a kid, and well, yeah. I've been spending a lot of time here lately, girl, let me tell you. But back then, when I was in my early teens, I was just learning to play guitar and teaching myself to play guitar. And I had piano lessons up to that point, and kept up learning piano after I was in marching band, all of that. My father was a retired band director. Right. I knew I was going to be in marching band going in. I wanted it more than I wanted almost anything. So it wasn't like it was a forced family thing, not in the least. I was all in. On school band, but I fell in love with the Beatles at a tender age, and that was hereditary too, because my mom was the perfect age when Beatlemania happened in the States. Yeah, she was too poor to go see them, but she still was a huge.
If you had fan. A radio, right?
And she taught me, right? Yeah. Come on, that was what was
all
there.
You needed.
And some of that stuff has continued to be relevant, which I really appreciate.
Yeah.
But when I was that younger person, and I was just figuring out, okay, I see the Beatles up there. I'm watching these Beatles movies. I'm reading stuff about their history at the library. Because I have no friends, and this is what I would rather be doing anyway. And I'm going to learn how to play guitar because I want to, and because I can, and also because of the Beatles. And I was raised in a household where nobody told me I couldn't grow up and be a certain thing. I say fairly frequently that my privilege, in many, many ways, stems from the fact that I have never woken up a day of my life and wondered if there was anybody out there who loved me, because I knew it, because I couldn't escape the reality that I was loved. And I didn't know that wasn't the norm necessarily until I was much older, until I was an adult. I didn't realize that not everybody had that. So because of all of that, I was pretty much deciding, I want to do this. I'm going to be a rock star.
Yeah.
And it went back to even earlier than that, like 8, 9 years old. I'm on the playground with the friends that I had when we were younger, because I was still managed to have friends somehow when I was in the single digits, because I wasn't too weird for everybody yet. I don't know. But this is rambling, and I am going to get around to the point, I swear.
This is perfect.
But the girls on the playground with me were like, I'm going to marry a so-and-so. I'm going to marry a doctor. I'm going to marry a rock star. And I was like, now wait just a damn minute. Right. Why would you want to marry the rock star instead of be the rock star?
That's right.
So I've been really stubborn about it for a very, very long time. So I'm sitting there in my room alone with my guitar in my early teens with no friends, mostly okay with it, but still carrying a bit of sadness. Yeah. Deciding, okay, I want to do this because I know that my people are out there, and one day I am going to find them.
Yeah.
Fast forward some 30 years to where we are now. And I know that my people are out there, but I've only had the option of connecting with them through our screens for 18 plus months.
It's been really
we have
hard.
Like the only content we get to make.
Yeah.
If we are, if we're not lucky enough to be in publishing and have our tangible works go out in forms that people can hold and read.
Yeah.
It's through these screens. And so it's been online shows and releasing new songs when I have the right one and I get it ready, one at a time, and just letting people enjoy those one songs at a time. That has been my lifeline. And I have loyal enough fans who have been like, people will contact me and say, I've had you on repeat on Spotify for like 24 hours. And I'm like, thank you. Because mama gets residuals from that. Mama gets a bank deposit every week. It really makes a difference. So I have so much, just heaps of gratitude for all that. But like,
there's part of your heart
we've had
that's
to change
aching.
we've had to change our witchcraft in that way too.
Yes.
A lot of us.
Yes.
And a lot of us have
Yes.
turned inward and taken the time to study. And I see this resurgence of just this folk magic renaissance, and it is amazing to watch.
Yeah.
And it's happening for me too, because it's given me time to get hyper local.
Yeah.
And I think the term I heard Aaron Oberon say bioregionalism, and I've been kind of obsessed with that term ever since then
That's great. That's
a
great.
magical study concept.
Mm.
There's just so many of us we've had to laser focus on things because we can't have the broader view right now. We just can't.
Yeah.
And at the same time, having that global sense of compassion. And it is tricky, but so many of us are killing it right now, especially when we have our compassion in the forefront. And for a very long time, as a witchy performer, I have wanted healing to be the main effect of what I do, whether it's in person, whether it's through a screen, whether it's the song that I release, whether it's the new album that I work on, whether it's something that I send out to my Patreon people. I want the healing to be at the center of it. And that's sort of the request that I make of my gods and my guides is let the healing come in whatever form anybody who hears this needs the most right now. And that's sort of my main, that's my taproot, if you will.
And
what I have
about
that,
the
and
healing?
just like I have my altar going, no matter what I'm working on, whether it's a pagan song or not, I fire up my altar when I go in that studio. That I have my little 1968 one-room cabin that used to be the 8 and 9-year-old boys' cabin when the camp was running here on the property where I currently sit. I fire up my altar and I go at it as if I were spell working, because I am.
You are.
I am.
You are.
But
you
even if it's not pagan music at the time,
it doesn't matter.
Through that process because I want the magic to come through.
Yeah.
If there's magic that somebody needs, let me be the shower head for that.
Well, listen,
that's kind of where I come from.
Music is vibration. Vibration is energy. Energy is healing. So it doesn't really matter if you're singing about, I don't know, ninjas or or salads.
Guilty as charged.
Or salads. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, people listening to this, you have to go and find SJ's music, because if you didn't love her already, that you will completely love her when you hear her ninja song. But it's vibrational, right? So one of the things I hear you talking about here as we're discussing this is how some people are really thriving right now, and some people are going inward, and some people are doing this or doing that, and everybody's vibrations are changing. What you're doing is putting vibrational energy out into the world. I learned recently that cats, when they purr, their vibration, the purr that they give off, is the same or similar to a vibration that is given during ultrasound treatments. It has to do with the sonic waves or whatever. And so, like, we always joke around that when the cat is laying on you and it's purring, it's giving you kitten magic. And it turns out, that's true, right? Because everything is energy.
This is why they come in to to observe and to want to be like right in the middle of your altar when you're trying to do stuff.
Yes, but it's vibrations.
They're connected with that same quantum, whatever it is.
It's the vibration.
We could spend a whole lot of time going really deep on that, but I have a memory that falls in line with this most recent question of talking about how did I get to the point where I realized that magic and music in me were going to be woven together, and how has that fully formed? Am I rephrasing it correctly?
Yes.
Is that where we wanted to go? Okay.
Yes.
All right. So circa 2002, 2003, I'm living in Memphis, Tennessee, which is where I moved after I graduated from college, got my 4-year degree, got my bachelor's in theater arts, if anyone's curious.
The theater.
And many theater and music scholarships, people. I was very, very fortunate, and not everyone can say that. I have had a lot of the flagstones just kind of fall into place in front of me, and that was one of the early ones. So I moved to Memphis because I thought, well, okay. In my 21-year-old mind, I thought, this is going to be a good jumping off place to see if I can even make a music career really happen for myself.
Right.
And the music industry was a very different place back then.
Oh, for sure.
The internet was a very different place back then.
Oh, for
A
sure.
lot of things are easier now for independent artists than they were, but even then, a lot of things were easier for independent artists than they had been previously in
Sure.
previous decades.
Mhm.
And that was when sort of streaming started to really blow up, and the industry was like, we're dying, we're going down in flames, everything
Yeah.
is changing, and the rest of us are like, yes, good, good. So I'm driving between the day job that I did not love. This definitely 2003. I'm recalling now.
What was the job?
And the recording studio where I'm going to record bit by bit, song by song, the first thing that I release, which is a full record, which was my first full CD that I took on the road in 2004, Haphazard. Still in print, still available for download in all the places. It was customer service rep. It was phone rep at a medical billing office.
Oh dear God.
I lasted 6 months.
Oh my God, I'm amazed
Are
that you
in that
lasted
field
6
and you
months.
lasted more than 6 months. My hat goes off to you.
Wow.
Because it was basically talking to folks who were upset and not in the best of health all day long. And that will test your reserves of compassion. And that's not to say that I got impatient with people, but after a while, I just had to go sit in the parking lot and cry some days. And I admit that freely. You've already seen me get emotional in the course of this interview. So I'm driving between that, these two extremes in my life of the day job and the recording studio.
Yeah.
Which was Young Avenue Sound in Memphis. Wonderful place at the time. They had what they called a performers recording co-op, where they would let you pay off the costs of recording your project with your CD sales after the fact. And this was back when everyone still had a CD,
and you had to pay for recording
now,
time. You had to pay for recording time back then. It wasn't like now where like everybody has, GarageBand on their computer in their basement.
It's much easier to learn how to do it for yourself these days, and to do it in broadcast quality.
Right.
And that is incredible. But there's still a lot to be said for going into a big fancy recording studio and seeing the fancy couch and the fancy mixing desk that is longer than your car. It's incredible, and it is an experience that I do recommend that everybody has at least once if you are any kind of music nerd. But I'm listening to NPR as one does when one has, an FM radio in the car, and this was pre-satellite radio and everything, at least as far as my old ass car was concerned. And Earth and Sky comes on, and it is a segment about a black hole in the Perseus galaxy that scientists from Cambridge have just released new information on. They have found a way to measure the frequency that this black hole has been putting off for however many decades, and beyond human reckoning of time and time passing. And they have translated it into the Western musical scale. And they have discovered that this black hole is putting off the same pitch, and that pitch is B flat. If y'all have no idea what I'm talking about right now, get somebody to take you to a piano and point out middle C on the piano. B flat. There are many B flats on the keyboard, but for today we're just going to talk about this one. So you poke middle C, and then you go to the nearest black piano key to the left. That is B flat.
Wow. I'm going to see if I could make a B flat. Like if I could digitize that.
I got a guitar next to me. If you want me to whip out,
play B flat.
Girl, I'm gonna whip out my B flat right now. Whip out. I'm gonna keep telling you the story while I'm doing this stuff. And so, at that point, that was the one little kernel of information that I needed to prove to me that it's not that much of a stretch to say that music is part of everything. Because if we can figure out what note a black hole is singing, and people have said for decades that the universe is a song, and the music of the spheres and all that, and string theory goes deep into this, and I've had my head blown open as a musician by string theory before. If you have no idea what that means, please feel free to Google.
We do not need to get into string theory, because I will sit here. B flat.
B flat. Here we go. And hopefully Zoom will allow that to come through pretty well.
Right.
So
amazing.
I was so excited that I nearly ran off the road, because at that point I was studying with a local witchy community, which is still there in Memphis, called Summerlin Grove. And they're an all-inclusive pagan church. They welcome anybody of any path, any tradition, any faith, or no tradition, path, or faith at all. And they had what they still have what they call a system of newbie classes of study called the realm system. And you start with first realm, which is earth, and it's there's an element attached to every one of the realms. And if you want to go all the way to fifth realm and become clergy, then you can. You don't have to. It's not required. The point is to help you figure out what your path is and to get your head right, especially if you were leaving like the faith that you previously came from. I was raised in the Methodist Church. It was a pleasant experience for me. It is not a pleasant experience for all of us. Sure. And even with having it be an awesome small town church where I was singing with my mom and my uncles in the choir as a teenager and loving the hell out of that, because I learned about harmony from them. I learned about being on stage from them. I got to learn all of this from my family. The first time I was on stage in a community theater production, I was 6 years old, and it was Fiddler on the Roof, which has that opening number, which a lot of y'all know, tradition, where everybody in the cast comes out on stage hand in hand. And in my case, I was 6 years old, and I was hand in hand with my mom and one of my uncles. Wow. So I didn't have stage fright until I was 30. Because it had always felt like that was where I was supposed to be, because my loved ones were right there beside me.
I'm so floored. You know, we're talking earlier about vibrations and vibrations being healing, and you know, that the fact that you have a cat that purrs, and that's the vibration of certain, you know, healing frequencies. For you to say, and I've got to look this up because now I'm like obsessed with this B flat black hole thing. Like holy crap! But that is like, I love being able to scientifically prove the things that the witches know.
Exactly. And that was what blew the top of my head off, was science is studying what I have always hoped was going to be true.
Right.
It's already been proven.
Those vibrations are the
vibrations that make up us.
That make up us. So here you are.
It's
as
not
a
that
musician.
Much of a stretch to translate that into a musical context. And that is what I live. It's what I live for.
It's what you live for. It's amazing to talk to you about this and really, you know, get that deep understanding of the melding of your musical philosophies with your spiritual sensibilities. It's just, it's amazing. So before we continue, we've got to take a quick break.
Okay.
And hear all about the fun sponsors that we have and why they're so great. And then we'll be right back. We don't actually have to take a break. I just have to say that so that my producer can cut it up. However, if you'd like to take a break.
I toast your producer.
Corey, and here's to Corey.
Thank you, Corey.
Thank you, Corey. He's amazing. And I couldn't do this without him. So yeah. Okay. So welcome back. We are here with the amazing, beautiful, fantastic S.J. Tucker, and we're learning all about her music and her path as a pagan and how she plays her music for the community. But she also writes music that's like fantasy based and sci-fi based and silly and all these great things. So she kind of takes everything that she is as a person. What we've already discussed, you're not really human because you're like pixie, witch, mermaid. You're like a little human. Like, I mean, I'm sure your blood is red, though it might be like purple sparkly.
No, can confirm, very red.
Very red. Okay.
If that changes, I'll let you know.
Let me know. But are you sure there's no glitter in it, like at all?
I try not to look at it when it happens. So there could be some glitter in there, but we don't
oh my goodness. So, you know,
I want to tell you, I have to tell you the glitter story. Okay. I'm going to embarrass my husband a little bit.
Excellent. But anything to embarrass Ryan.
In the early days, 11 years ago, I had one of those lush, glittery massage bars, and I brought it over to his house. Sexy. And because we were going to have some time, we were going to have some time,
some grown-up time.
And after I left the property to go back out into the world and go singing to people again with a huge shit-eating grin on my face, I hear about this later. Ryan goes down to see his parents. And they're very close. They talk every day. They live about 75 yards from where I
Right.
currently sit. So they're on
Right.
property with us. And he walks in the door, and his dad says, why are you covered in glitter? And Ryan doesn't say anything, and he just grins. Like the Cheshire grin just starts to spread, and his
Yeah.
dad goes, oh, right.
I mean,
And they kind of, we had visited a few times. I had met his folks, but they didn't really know all of my pixie ways quite yet. But I think that was one day where they were like,
oh,
oh.
we had a similar, I mean, not glitter, but when Justin and I first started dating, maybe a very short period of time. I'm sorry, I'm just hearing somebody in the neighborhood is mowing their lawn, and I can hear it. So I don't know if you can hear it through your headphones. Hopefully it's something that if the mic picks it up, fabulous
Nope.
Corey can edit it out. So Justin and I had first started dating, and my parents went away. Like we were young. Like we were young.
I remember this story.
We
I
were
love
really
this story so much.
My parents went away, and Justin took vacation from his job, and we basically spent like a week together in my house, my parents' house. And he got home after that, and his parents are like, "Did you lose weight?
Have you been working out?
Have you been working out?" And again, it was sort of, he's like, "No."
Oh, wait.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes. No. Yeah.
I
gotta go.
Yeah, I gotta go. Let's not get into that. But yeah, that's how you know. Like that's a guy you marry. Like that's the guy you marry.
Pretty much. Well, at least in your case, in my case, that is precisely how the story went.
Yeah.
And you told me that story when we were at New York City Pagan Pride together, and I got to, at the last minute, go to Long Island and stay with you guys at your parents' house.
No.
Yeah.
You were at my mom's house?
It was a long time ago, but I got to go home with you.
No. You were in our apartment on Long Island. Hold on. It's my lawn. The guys are mowing my lawn.
Oh, sheesh. Okay.
I gotta close the window. Hold on. Okay. I'm sorry,
sure
Corey,
that it wasn't
really
your mom's house? Are you sure?
Would I have brought you to my mother's house? What do you remember?
There was some reason why. There was some, like they were away, and they needed you to come and check on the house, or you were staying there because of the Pagan Pride because it was so close.
Yes, they were away, and we were staying there.
And at the last minute, you were like, "Just come stay with me,"
and you did.
It's like, yes, I'll come stay with you. Are you kidding?
You know what? That was, I think, when my dad was sick. I think you were there with me when my dad was sick, and my parents were in Philly at a treatment center for him.
Yes, you're right.
Yeah,
I remember
and that's
now.
why I
The
was
fog is clearing.
Yeah, just come with me. And they were away, and you stayed with me. And then like I dropped you at the train station. Did I drop you at the train station or the airport or something?
And you dropped me at the train station, and then I went up to Maine to see Kat Valenti.
Yes. I think I had to go to the train station.
And I stayed with her for Halloween.
How long have we known each other?
And I went to Boston and saw some of my peeps up there too. That was a beautiful time. And I have to say that for a while I only got to see New York City when it was cold. And then I got to start having shows there in the summer and in the later spring.
And then you could smell
it right at the beginning of the autumn. And I was like, now I get it.
No.
To this day, that New York City Pagan Pride is probably my favorite show that I've ever done.
It was
in all of the New York area.
It was in a really that show.
Part of that, my dear, is because you were there and because I got to see your face.
And because I fed you.
Of course, because you fed me.
Because I fed you. New York in the summer, as a native New Yorker, New York in the summer doesn't smell great. New York in the winter is better because it doesn't smell.
But it's cold. I am from places where it does that. Like we have the wet cold down here, right? And I've been in many different places in winter now, but there's something about that East Coast cold that just makes me tired.
Come to New Hampshire.
Okay.
Come to New Hampshire at Christmas. You won't be sad. Okay, come to Salem. Come to Salem in October. You won't be sad.
I have been to Salem in October, and almost exactly 11 years ago was when we had StrahlerCon in the Boston area. And speaking of trauma that I carry, the event was wonderful, but being one of the people who was on the production side of the event, like I have
Yeah.
all the compassion on the earth for
Yeah.
anyone who puts on a con or a festival, because I have been on so
Yes.
many of the backstage sides of that now. Like major compassion. And something I wanted to say earlier that we didn't get to touch on is part of, and we brought up the term languishing, that's sort of where we're at now globally in the midst of the panini.
Panini's so yummy though.
It is. I know. I don't want to blame it on the panini.
No,
Panoodle. We can come up with another pen.
The plague.
But pancetta is yummy too, so I can't do that either.
All the pea foods are good.
So the thing, we're in the midst of the thing, and the thing that some of the stuff in news coverage and things that hits me the hardest, that hurts me the most, is when I see people who have chosen to do something other than show compassion.
Yeah.
Some of the legislating that's getting done lately, for instance, and we don't have to go there, but
we don't need to.
But I think that's true for a lot of us, and a lot of us who are sensitive, and a lot of us who are magical practitioners, whatever our magical practice may or may not look like. Right. Is that we see, like, we're choosing compassion actively, because that's the only thing that's going to get us through this, or it's one of the only things we are choosing kindness as best we can, while also making sure that we stay alive long enough to survive this for however long it takes, and keep a roof over our head, and make sure that our families are taken care of. And yet we see people with immense power who are choosing something other than taking care of other people and making sure that other folks are okay. And it just, for me, I have those moments where I just have to be a puddle on the floor. Mm-hmm. And then I come back, and then I get back up, and then I compassion harder.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm not saying that it's the catalyst for every song that I've released and everything that I've worked on since the lockdowns began and since sheltering in place began. But I notice that pattern in myself, and I think that I'm not the only one. So I want to urge all of us to notice the compassion happening when the people who are choosing the opposite start to get under your skin.
Even if those
try and ask for stories about people choosing compassion instead
find the light,
not doing so.
Find the light, even when it's you find the light, and when you can't find it, be it, especially when it's people that maybe you're related to, people that maybe you used to be close with, people.
I have had to come to grips with never seeing a couple of my friends ever again because of how they feel about vaccines, for instance.
Everything.
And it's very sad, but I'm like, well, I guess you're not coming to my house because I have a child here who is too young for many vaccines, not least this most recent one that we're all so focused on.
Right.
And I will not risk him just for your ass.
Right. It's just for your arrogance.
Nor will I risk myself, because if I end up with a breakthrough case of long COVID and I can't sing to people as effectively anymore, that's going to cause a problem. Right. Because Mama's music pays the bills.
Right.
And I have the witchy community to thank for that. I have our global witchy and fandom community, and where they intersect.
Yes.
To thank for that. And y'all are so loyal. You really, really are. And believe me, we notice. And the pagan music scene is itty bitty. And that a lot of people don't understand this.
Right.
That so many pagan musicians are buddies, and we talk to each other.
Absolutely.
Even when we're not
very
at events,
tiny.
We hang out, we email back and forth. So if somebody is mean to one of us, everybody else gets to hear it. Yeah. Like I'm emailing throughout the day. I'm emailing Wendy Rule. I'm emailing Kellyanna. I'm emailing Ginger Doss. Yes. I'm emailing Nathaniel Johnstone and Laura Tempest Zakroff, and being like, hey, maybe don't work with this guy or this group if they contact you, because here's what just happened to me. And it's not talking smack. It's love and professional courtesy.
It's looking out for each other.
In like the old school community kind of way.
Yes.
And I don't know if that is widespread through the music industry, because being a pagan musician has meant that I don't have to play a lot of the mainstream music games.
right.
And I
Right.
will never not be grateful for that, because I got like I was on a mainstream track up to a point.
Yeah.
And then Darwin Prophet was the one who showed me this. She was the pagan artist who showed me this. I could perform at pagan festivals and do it like a rock star, and
You kind
play
of are a
things
rock
that
star,
made people
Sooj.
laugh.
You
I
are a
want
rock
it.
star.
I've always wanted it, and I've told you that.
You are though.
I've
But
told
you,
you that already today.
yeah. Yeah, but you kind of are. Like, I'd be like, I'm friends with her. Oh my God. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, you're a total rock star. So
I love
tell
it,
us.
and I love to hear about it. I love it when people come back to me and like, so someone was on Twitter with me the other day. And we're like, wait, you know S.J. Tucker? And they're like, yeah, she was my roommate or whatever. I love
Yeah.
it. Hearing about
Yeah.
it. Don't think
I
that
don't,
I don't.
I try not to like, I try not to throw that around because like I don't want to be a name dropper. Like I'm really not that person because I'm good with just the friendship that we have. It's enough for me. I don't need people to know about it. But if someone else was like, oh, yes, I did this and I did that. And I'd be like, oh yeah, when Sooj was at my house, we blah, 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 blah. And then people are like, what? It's happened a couple of times with other people where I'm like, I'm just gonna let you know that you're not that you throwing somebody's name around does not make you cool. Don't use somebody else's name to make yourself cool. Like, okay. Anyway, tell us, because we don't have a lot of time left. Tell us what you're working on, what you're excited about right now.
Okay, well, as we sit here in this moment, I have recently released a new song that I mentioned earlier called Outlast.
Outlast.
And it was one of those where I was like, okay, I got to put this out there because people have seen me perform it live on YouTube, and they have told me that it was exactly what they needed that day.
Yes.
And that was one that had been on the back burner that I wrote in 2019. And if when you listen to it, it doesn't sound like I wrote it in 2019. It sounds like a total pandemic reaction song.
Wow.
And that's fine. That's fine, because it absolutely applies. It translates over to this moment that we are in now.
What were you
as you and I sit talking?
What were you feeling when you wrote it?
Well, the dumpster fire was still in office
at
the time, in 2019.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of sort of feeling powerless to do anything other than survive.
Yeah.
In a lot of us.
Yes.
In addition to being as active as possible with our voice and making space for the voices to be heard of people who are not the ones who get listened to normally, who are not allowed to be the loudest because of the color of their skin, because of where they live, etc. All these factors. And so I believe, and this was one that I wrote to a prompt, and I think it was a really cool song prompt. And I didn't even try writing songs to prompts until 2015, and I fell in with an amazing group of songwriters who just to see if we would all write a song every week to the same prompt and turn it in by the following Sunday at the stroke of midnight. And it didn't even have to be good. It could suck.
For the non-musicians, can you explain what writing a song to a prompt means?
Well, in the case of Outlast, I was given the idea to write a song that mentions the name of a bird that is a native species to where you live. And that was one of the more involved ones. And I think I was the one that inflicted that on the group, actually. So that one was totally my fault. But in other cases, it's something like a word or a phrase, or say, write a song about water, or just include the word water in your lyrics, that kind of thing. And sometimes there's an additional musical prompt, like put in a hesitation, put in a key change, put in a tempo change or a time signature change.
So it's like an exercise in your creative palette.
It's like a writing prompt,
but keep you fresh.
For the music-y side of things.
Cool,
yeah,
really
and it was
cool.
Incredible. And I've written so many songs because of that group that like I haven't written anything new in a very long time because my brain is packed. I have hundreds to work on from that whole experience, which I was part of for several years.
Wow.
And last year was the final time up to this point. And I sort of hived off with my friend Leslie Hudson, who is another songwriter up in Canada, and she and I were just giving each other prompts each week,
Wow.
up until we decided that we were done. But in 2019, I wrote Outlast to that prompt about including in the composition or the lyrics of your song a species of bird that's native to where you are.
Wow.
And I picked the great blue heron because we've got a tiny 14-acre lake right outside of where I'm shooting with you right now, Dawn. And we have many, many great blue herons that live here year round.
Wow.
And if you live out in the country and you hear one of those in the middle of the night and you don't already know what it is, it's freaky. They remember being dinosaurs. They sound like a creaky screen door came to life as a cryptid and is telling you to get off their lawn. That is how great blue herons sound when they are pissed off or when they get startled. It sounds scarier than the thing that startled them, I promise. So the line that the song was built on, the lyric line was, "Let us be herons out hunting who float when the rivers rise. Let us take care of each other. Let us be calm and wise."
Wow.
And that's not even that's just my favorite bit of the lyrics. That's not even the refrain, which is essentially, these are the times we are made for. We are built to outlast.
Wow.
And these are the times we are made for is something that Laura Tempest Zakroff said at one point while we were in the midst of surviving what we were surviving in 2019 and not even surviving what we're surviving now.
Yeah. She's an amazing,
and that all comes back, and
well.
she's part of this community for folks that don't know her name as a performer, as a dancer, as an author, as an artist, as a facilitator. She's incredible. She's a witchy polymath. Who has no equal as far as
I had the pleasure of interviewing her on this podcast. And again, she's someone that there's so many people, we all, like you said, we all travel in the same circles. We don't all necessarily meet at the same time, but we're all we're all aware of each other. And she is everything that you say that she is. Okay. So you've just released Outlast. This episode may not air until November or December. What do you have coming up in, in the next couple of months? Do you have anything planned, or are you just going to be creative wizard and see what magic you create in the next couple of months?
Well, I should make sure that I tell all of your folks that enjoy this podcast, that I have been doing online shows since way before the pandemic hit us, and I have continued those throughout this wild time that we are living in.
And they're so good. They're so good. They're so good, and you're so interactive, and you're so engaging. You really do. It's an online show, but the great thing about an online show is that you feel like you don't have to share S.J. Tucker with anyone. You feel like she's there giving you a private concert. And as someone who has been lucky enough to have S.J. Tucker playing in her living room, I can tell you there is a special kind of magic in that.
I play in your living room. I eat your food. I pet your cats.
You've played in a couple of different of my living rooms, apparently. But yes,
it's true.
Yes. And
the online shows are ongoing. Yeah. They are ongoing, and they are hosted by a platform which was founded by people I trust with my life. My bandmates up in Canada, Heather Dale and Ben Deschamps. If you don't know Heather Dale's work, I encourage all of you to look her up. She's brilliant. We are producing all sorts of online shows, and it's not just Heather's shows and mine. Other artists are coming on board. If you hear me talk about onlineconcertthing.com and you need a concert home of your own, come and check it out. Come and type in the .com and see if it's a good fit for you. It's not a good fit for everybody. Some folks are much more comfortable doing YouTube Live or Twitch or Facebook Live, and there's nothing wrong with that. Onlineconcertthing.com is the one for me, partly because it's founded by people that I trust to travel internationally with. We have done many times. I've shared shows with them all over the place, but also because it's entirely independent. It is run by musicians. There is no corporate sponsorship up to this point. That could change, but that's not what we're looking for. We're also not trying to compete with YouTube Live or with Twitch or with even online shows through Bandcamp, which is another platform that I will ride or die for. I love it so much. we want to facilitate community and be a place for musicians who find that the platform is the right one for them to come and give online shows, whether the world is shut down or not. And this thing was how I financed my own little independent self-employed maternity leave. And my digital distribution for my music, which has been going since 2004 and building momentum since then. And I'm very fortunate for that. But the online shows I will always have more dates there. And anytime anybody needs to find me or see what I'm up to, sjtucker.com is the place to go.
SJ Tucker, S the letter, J the letter, Tucker.com.
Yes, Tucker, no fancy letters. Just phonetically the way that they come out usually.
And on social media as well.
Well, SJ Tucker Music is almost every platform that you could look on.
Right.
Twitch, all the YouTube, all the places. If you type in SJ Tucker Music without any spaces, I am hopefully going to come up right away. And Twitter, my handle is different because I am stubborn and I've had it for ages. That's the only one, but you'll probably still find me if you type that in.
And we're going to have all the notes, where to find you. All of your links are going to be on the show notes. So people will be able to find you. They'll be able to watch your concerts and listen to your music and to download. Where can people download your music, whether it's a full album or just a single? Where do you recommend that they go for that? Is that also sjtuckermusic.com, or do you prefer other platforms?
Well, SJ Tucker Music is my handle all across social media except for Twitter, as I said. If you go to sjtucker.com, that will get you to everywhere else. It's great. I don't have a link tree because I have that. And I just like, okay, this is where right on the front page is the link to the YouTube and the blog and the Instagram and the online shows and on down the list. But type me in on Spotify. I will come up. Type me in on Pandora and Apple Music and Amazon Music and all the places. You will find streamable things. If you want to download and order CDs directly from me, sjtucker.com, again, is the place to start. Music.sjtucker.com is my Bandcamp. And this is getting repetitive. So all the SJ Tucker with all the music.
We'll have all the links in the show notes. And if anybody has questions, they can email me and I could send them whatever they need to. But
I should say that if all goes well, I will have I've got at least one live show scheduled for 2022. I would love for more of those to happen.
It's going to happen. I don't know when.
I've got at least two. I've got at least two because I will be at the 30th anniversary of Phoenix Festival's events down in Florida in March of 2022.
Wow.
And I will be at CocoCon in Arizona around Labor Day weekend 2022. And so those are like the anchor events for booking anything else that comes up.
It's going to happen.
More things will open up because it will be safe to do so. And when it is safe,
we're going to will it
we
into
will gather
existence
again. And all of us who have survived and all of us who are grieving and all of us who are on the other side will come together again when it is safe and sane to do so. And we will get to just hug it out and cry it out.
Yes, and finally. We will hug it out and cry. And there will be a lot of hugging and a lot of crying. I feel like I'm virtually hugging you right now. Are you kidding? And I feel like it's been so long since we've actually seen each other, pandemic or no, that the next time we see each other, we'd probably wind up just
we need a day
just like holding each other.
It'd just be a puddle on the floor and eat snacks.
Yes, cookies.
Blanket forts.
So my very last question is what I ask every guest is, if you were to have me as the kitchen witch make one meal for you, what would that meal be and why?
I thought about this so hard. I want you to
You knew I was going to ask you.
Because I've been following your podcast so dedicated. I adore it. And I adore you and I miss you. And it means I get to hear your voice on a regular basis.
Thank you.
And also other people's voices I like.
I get to hear your voice on a regular basis. I feel like you're like, every time I listen to your songs, every time I listen to your music, I feel like, oh, I have a little piece of SJ.
I want you to. I want you to feel that way. That's why I do what I do. It's to make everybody a little less lonely if I possibly can.
So what would I make you?
Some performers will say, "This is a piece of me that you can take home," and that's on the creepy side just a little bit, but that's not where it's coming from. So the last time I got to be fully on the road was 2019, and my son was still like in the houseplant stage at the time, so we could just carry him around with us. And we took him to Colorado for Beltania, and we took him to New Mexico for the magical Equinox Festival there, and he got to go and travel and have baby's first festivals several times. And while we were in Colorado, I got to go to a Moroccan restaurant. And I got to eat pastilla for the first time, which is chicken and powdered sugar and this gorgeous, gorgeous entree or appetizer. And I am not an expert on this cuisine, so please, everyone, forgive me if I am wrongly categorizing any of this. But we were the only people in there, and we had a cute baby, so we got to strike up a conversation with our host, who was fabulous. And the place is called Cafe Paprika, and it's in the Aurora area of the Denver metro. And I would go back there. I would teleport there instantly just so that I could eat there again. But I thought of you, Dawn, and I thought, if there's a way that we could make this and eat it together, if there is as safe to feed it to Dawn option of pastilla in the world, that is what I want. And what the host told us about this dish is, if you go to a Moroccan wedding and there's no pastilla, it's a cheap wedding.
Oh, well, I'm gonna have to do some research and come up
and
with
that,
a pastilla
that taught me
recipe.
so much. It was like, that was the tea right there. Okay.
Yeah.
And wintertime is coming up, and avgo lemon soup is another favorite thing of mine. It's lemony chicken and rice soup with some egg going on from Greece. And like, those are the two things that I've been missing so hard lately. And like, even though I only had the pastilla once, like, clearly it had an effect on me.
It had an effect on you.
But I've had avgo lemon at every place that I possibly could find it.
I'm going to try to find some research on this dish and come up with a recipe that is Sooj approved. And then I'll post it on our website with your show notes. And then you can make it and I can make it. We can make it together at the same time. And then we can like take pictures of it and like take pictures of ourselves eating it. And
I want it. I want all of that.
It would be amazing. S.J. Tucker, the amazing, the incredible pixie witch mermaid, songstress, storyteller, dear friend, sister of my heart. I adore you so much. I cannot thank you enough for your insight and your love and your generosity with your time and your heart. This has been just incredible. I heart you so much. I don't want to like gush too hard.
Also, we don't want to go, and I get that.
I know. I totally don't want to go.
The last time that you and I were together, you said to me, we are self-made women, and we have to celebrate that. And I hear you repeat that in my mind anytime I get doubtful. Anytime the self-doubt comes, my Dawn is there for me. And you are a lion. You are a giant.
I'm actually just a
Aurora.
little Scorpio. I'm just a little scorpion, and I just sting everybody who gets in my way.
Don't get in her way, people.
That's not entirely true. I really appreciate that. I admire you. I look up to you. I'm inspired by you. Every
time I walk in my kitchen, there you are, because I got your oils.
I know, and I saw today just before we started, there's an order, and I'm like, Sooj, you could just call me, and I would just send you what you want. You know, like, and nobody like in my warehouse, they don't know this person is Sooj because it's just, it's just your name and your address. They don't, and I'll be like, I'll send the warehouse. I'll be like, this is for Sooj. Make sure you pack it really good because I can't break. Anyway, I love you to pieces. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much again for your generosity and your time. I simply adore you. And until next time, I wish you many blessings and so much gratitude. Thank you so much.
Thank you for this time. I am over the moon.